The night was colder than usual, the kind of chill that seeped into your bones no matter how many layers you wore. Thick fog rolled over the open fields, swallowing the distant hills, and turning the narrow countryside road into an endless tunnel of gray. Liam kept his hands tight on the steering wheel, his knuckles pale under the dim glow of the dashboard. The old Ford rattled slightly as it bumped along the uneven road, its headlights cutting through the mist but revealing nothing beyond the next few meters. He hated driving this late, especially in this part of Ireland. It wasn't just the isolation, the long stretches of nothing but grasslands and old stone walls. It was the stories. Every village had them. Every family had warnings passed down like heirlooms. But one tale in particular had stuck with him since childhood, the one his grandmother used to whisper on stormy nights when the wind howled against the windows. If you ever hear a girl crying in the countryside, don't stop. Don't look. And for the love of God, don't try to help. Liam never believed in superstitions. He had spent enough time away from home, living in the city, where ghosts were nothing more than old pub tales. But something about the silence of the night, the way the fog seemed almost alive, unsettled him. He checked the time, just past midnight. He was supposed to have reached his cousin's house in the next village an hour ago, but a wrong turn had led him deeper into the backroads. His phone had lost signal miles ago. Typical. As he rounded a bend, the headlights caught something in the distance, a figure standing at the side of the road. His heart jumped. He slowed down just enough to make out the details. A girl. Young. Barefoot. Her long dark hair clung to her face, damp from the mist. She wore a thin white dress, which seemed completely wrong for the biting cold. She wasn't waving for help, wasn't even looking at him. She just stood there, shoulders shaking as though she were crying. Liam's breath hitched. Every rational part of his mind told him to keep driving. Could be a lost traveler, someone in need of help. But another part, the one that had listened to his grandmother's warnings, screamed at him to go. His fingers twitched on the gear shift, his foot hovering over the gas pedal. Then, without thinking, he did something he would regret for the rest of his life. He stopped the car. The engine hummed softly as he sat there, gripping the wheel, unsure of what to do next. He rolled the window down just a crack. "Hey, are you all right?" His voice came out steadier than he felt. The girl didn't respond. Something about the way she stood, the unnatural stillness, made his stomach twist. A shiver ran down his spine, though he wasn't sure if it was from the cold or something else. Then she moved. Not the way a normal person would shift their weight or turn to acknowledge someone. It was sudden, almost unnatural, as if she had just snapped into a new position without the in-between movement. One moment she was still, the next she was closer. Too close. Liam's pulse roared in his ears. The fog thickened, pressing in around the car. He fumbled to put the gear back into drive, but his hands were trembling. The girl lifted her head, just slightly, revealing a pale face. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. And then, a sharp knock rattled the passenger side window. Liam's entire body jerked. The sound was impossibly loud in the silence. He snapped his head toward the window, expecting to see the girl. But she wasn't there. The seat next to him, which had been empty seconds ago, was now occupied. Liam's mouth opened to scream, but the fog swallowed the sound. Liam's breath caught in his throat. His fingers clenched the steering wheel so tightly that his knuckles ached, but he couldn't move. He couldn't turn his head, couldn't bring himself to look directly at the thing sitting beside him. The air in the car felt wrong, too cold, too heavy. It was as if the space around him had shrunk, pressing against his skin, making it hard to breathe. His pulse pounded in his ears, drowning out everything except the deafening silence. Slowly, inch by inch, his eyes shifted toward the passenger seat. The girl sat there, completely still. Her long, dark hair hung over her face, strands sticking to her pale skin as if she had just stepped out of water. The dim light from the dashboard barely reached her, casting shadows across her thin frame. Liam's stomach twisted. She wasn't wet, at least not in the way a person caught in the rain would be. It was something else. Her dress, her hair, even her skin. Everything about her looked like it had been left out in the damp for too long, like old fabric left to rot. She didn't speak. She didn't move. Liam swallowed hard, forcing down the rising panic in his chest. This wasn't real. Couldn't be real. Maybe he had dozed off for a second. Maybe his mind was playing tricks on him because of the fog and the darkness. He needed to get out of here. His fingers fumbled to shift the car into drive, but his hands were shaking so badly that he could barely grip the gear stick. The girl turned her head. The movement was slow, unnaturally slow, like a rusted hinge creaking open. Liam's body locked up, every muscle tensed as if he were made of stone. He couldn't see her eyes, not yet, but he could feel them, could feel the weight of her gaze pressing down on him like an invisible force. His breath came in short, ragged bursts. His grandmother's voice echoed in his mind, distant but clear. If you hear a girl crying, hide immediately. But he hadn't hidden. He had stopped. He had looked. And now she was here. The silence stretched between them, thick and suffocating. The longer Liam sat there, the more the car seemed to shrink around him. The girl's head tilted slightly, like she was studying him, like she was waiting for something. Then, in a voice so soft it was almost lost in the fog, she whispered, "Why did you stop?" Liam's heart nearly stopped. The question was simple, but there was something in her tone that sent ice crawling down his spine. It wasn't anger. It wasn't fear. It was curiosity. And somehow that was worse. His throat was dry. His voice barely came out. "I thought you needed help." The girl didn't react at first. Then, ever so slowly, she let out a small, breathy laugh. It wasn't natural. It wasn't normal. It sounded wrong, like the echo of laughter in a place where no one should be laughing. "You shouldn't have," she murmured. Liam's stomach twisted. Every instinct in his body screamed at him to run, to get out of the car, to leave this place and never look back. But he couldn't move. His hands were frozen on the steering wheel. His legs felt numb, like he had been sitting in ice water for too long. The girl's fingers twitched. Just slightly. Just enough for him to notice. Then she lifted her head. Liam didn't want to see. He didn't want to look. But he couldn't stop himself. Her eyes weren't human. They were dark. Too dark, like deep, endless pools of ink. There was no light in them, no reflection. Nothing but a hollow emptiness that made Liam's stomach churn. And in that moment he knew. This wasn't a lost girl. This wasn't someone who needed help. This was something else. Something old. Something that had been waiting. His body finally obeyed. His foot slammed down on the gas pedal, the tires screeched against the gravel, and the car lurched forward. For a brief, terrifying second, he thought she would still be there, that she wouldn't let him leave. But when he risked a glance at the passenger seat, she was gone. The car sped down the road, the fog swallowing everything behind him. Liam's breath came in sharp gasps, his hands trembling violently on the wheel. The road twisted and turned, the headlights barely cutting through the thick mist. He didn't know where he was going. He just knew he had to keep driving. But the feeling didn't leave. That weight, that presence, it was still there, clinging to the air like the dampness of the fog. The car's interior felt colder than before, the shadows stretching unnaturally across the dashboard. Liam's heart pounded as he gripped the wheel tighter, his mind racing. Then, just ahead, something shifted in the mist. Figure. Standing in the middle of the road. Liam's foot slammed the brakes. The tires screeched, the car skidded, but he managed to stop just in time. His breath caught in his throat as he stared at the figure illuminated by the headlights. It was her. The same girl. Standing barefoot on the road, her dress billowing slightly in the night air. Liam's chest heaved, panic surging through him like a wildfire. His hands trembled as he reached for the gear shift, his mind screaming at him to turn around, to get away, to do anything but sit there and wait for what would happen next. Then, slowly, the girl raised her hand. He pointed. Not at him. Not at the car. She was pointing past him. Liam's breath stilled. The air in the car turned ice cold. And then, a whisper. Not from outside. Not from the girl. From right behind him. Liam. He didn't remember screaming. But the sound of it shattered the silence of the night. Liam's scream barely lasted a second before his breath caught in his throat. His entire body went rigid, every muscle frozen with fear. The whisper had been too close, right behind his ear inside the car. His hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly that his fingers ached, but he couldn't move. He didn't dare turn around. The girl was still standing in the road, her arm outstretched, pointing past him into the darkness. Her face remained unreadable, her posture eerily still. The fog swirled around her feet, thick and shifting like something alive. Liam's chest rose and fell in sharp, uneven breaths, his mind racing. The whisper had said his name. He was alone in the car. Wasn't he? Slowly, heart pounding against his ribs. He forced his shaking hands to move. His fingers reached for the rearview mirror, tilting it ever so slightly. There was something in the back seat. His breath hitched. At first, it was just a shadow, vague, shapeless, blending into the darkness. But then, as his eyes adjusted, the shape became clearer. Figure. Hunched. It sat in the center of the back seat, barely visible in the dim light. And then it moved. Liam didn't think. His survival instincts kicked in before his brain could process what he was doing. His foot slammed onto the gas pedal, the car lurching forward with a screech of tires against wet gravel. The figure in the back didn't make a sound. He didn't dare look again. The girl in the road didn't move. She didn't even flinch as the car sped toward her. For a brief second, Liam thought he was about to hit her, but as the headlights passed over where she stood, she simply vanished. Not like someone stepping into the fog. Not like a trick of the light. 1 second she was there, the next she was gone. Liam's hands were shaking so badly he could barely keep the car steady. His mind was in freefall, every thought crashing into the next, unable to make sense of what was happening. His grandmother's warnings weren't just old stories. They were real. He had stopped when he shouldn't have. He had looked when he shouldn't have. And now something was in the car with him. The road stretched endlessly ahead, swallowed by the fog, but Liam didn't care where he was going anymore. He just had to get away. His fingers clenched the wheel. His pulse hammering in his ears. The silence inside the car felt unbearable, pressing down on him, thick and suffocating. Then, soft as a breath, a voice from the back seat. "Where are you going, Liam?" His stomach twisted violently. He kept his eyes locked on the road, refusing to look in the mirror. He couldn't. The voice was small, almost childlike. It wasn't the girl from the road. This was something else. Something worse. "You shouldn't have stopped," it whispered. "You shouldn't have looked." Liam's throat was so tight he could barely breathe. His mind screamed at him to ignore it, to keep driving, to pretend he hadn't heard anything. But the thing in the back seat wasn't going to let him go so easily. A soft rustling sound filled the car, like fabric shifting, like something moving closer. Then a cold, damp touch on the back of his neck. Liam lost control. The car veered sharply to the left, the tires skidding on the slick road. He fought to correct it, but the car was moving too fast. The world spun in a blur of gray and black. Then impact. The jolt slammed through him as the car plowed into something hard. His head snapped forward, the seatbelt cutting into his chest. The world tilted. Then everything went still. For a moment there was nothing. Just the distant ringing in his ears, the slow realization that he was still alive. His head throbbed, his vision blurred. The car had come to a stop at the edge of the road, the front bumper buried in a thicket of damp grass and twisted roots. Steam curled from under the hood. Liam's hands trembled as he reached for the door handle. He needed to get out. Then he heard it. The soft click of a door opening. Not his back seat. A wave of terror crashed over him. He shut his eyes tight, gripping the wheel as if holding on to something solid would keep him safe. He listened as something shifted behind him, as light footsteps crunched against the gravel. Low, deliberate, then silence. Liam forced his eyes open. Through the cracked windshield, he could see the mist curling ahead of him. The road stretched out, empty, as if nothing had ever been there. But he knew better. Swallowing hard, he reached for his phone. His hands were slick with sweat, his fingers numb. No signal. Course. He wasn't sure why he had even hoped. His breathing slowed, but the tightness in his chest didn't ease. He wasn't safe. Not yet. Cautiously, he turned his head just enough to glance at the back seat. Nothing but dark fabric and the faint imprint of where something had been sitting. His stomach twisted at the sight. He couldn't stay here. Whatever was out there, it wasn't done with him. He could feel it lingering just beyond the mist, watching. Liam's fingers fumbled to restart the car. The engine sputtered but held. The headlights flickered, casting long, distorted shadows through the fog. He forced the gear into reverse, easing the car back onto the road. Every nerve in his body screamed at him to keep moving, to put as much distance between himself and whatever had just happened. As he pulled forward, his eyes flicked back to the rearview mirror one last time. For a second, just a split second, he thought he saw a figure standing at the edge of the road, barely visible through the fog. Watching, waiting, and then, just like before, gone. Liam's hands were ice cold against the steering wheel. His knuckles were pale from gripping too hard, but he couldn't loosen his hold. His breath was uneven, chest rising and falling in sharp, panicked bursts. The road ahead was an endless stretch of darkness, the fog swallowing everything beyond the reach of his flickering headlights. Every nerve in his body was screaming at him to get out, to leave this place behind, but the road felt like a trap, like it was winding him deeper into something he couldn't escape. His heart pounded as he stole another glance at the rearview mirror. The back seat was just as it should be. Nothing there but the faint impression of where something or someone had been. But that didn't mean he was alone. The air in the car still felt wrong, heavy with something unseen. The sensation of being watched clung to him like damp air on skin. He could almost feel a presence pressing against his shoulders, lingering just out of sight. His mind was spinning. What had he seen? What had it been? The girl in the road, the whisper in the car, the thing in the back seat. It wasn't just one spirit, one lost soul. This was something more. Something older. Something that didn't want him to leave. The road twisted sharply, and Liam barely had time to react. He yanked the wheel, the tires skidding on the wet gravel before finding traction again. His breath came fast and shallow. He had no idea where he was going anymore. The countryside was an endless maze of empty roads, narrow lanes, and thick hedgerows that seemed to close in around him. He was lost. And worse, he wasn't sure he was alone. Then, up ahead, something appeared in the mist. Shape. Figure. Liam's stomach turned to ice. His foot hovered over the brake, his body screaming at him to stop, but he didn't want to stop. Not again. Not after last time. The headlights pushed forward, cutting through the fog, and for a fleeting second, he saw her. The girl. She stood motionless at the edge of the road, her long dark hair hanging over her face, her thin dress billowing slightly even though there was no wind. Liam's breath hitched. His pulse roared in his ears. He had left her behind. She had vanished. She had been in the road before and then in his car, and now. His fingers tightened on the wheel. He didn't slow down. He couldn't. Whatever she was, she wasn't human. Not anymore. The girl's head tilted slightly as if she was listening. Then she took a single step forward. Liam panicked. He swerved to the right, the car jolting dangerously close to the ditch, but he kept going. He didn't dare look back. His hands were slick with sweat, his throat dry, his entire body locked in terror. But just as he thought he had passed her, a hand slammed against the passenger window. Liam screamed. The fingers were pale, damp, pressed hard against the glass, leaving behind smears of something dark and wet. The girl's face was suddenly there, inches from his, her hair falling away to reveal hollow black eyes. Her mouth slightly open as if whispering something too soft to hear. The car lurched as Liam lost control for a second, but he didn't stop. His entire body was shaking, his vision blurring with panic. The pressure against the window faded, gone, just as suddenly as it had appeared. But he couldn't slow down, couldn't take a second to breathe. His heart thundered as he forced himself to focus on the road. The countryside stretched on, endless and empty. He needed to find something, anything. Landmark, house, sign of life. Then, in the distance he saw it. Lights. A faint, flickering glow through the trees. His pulse quickened. House. Someone was home. He pushed the car forward, forcing himself to ignore the sickening dread clinging to his skin. Whatever was out here, it didn't want him to leave. It had followed him. It had spoken to him. It had touched him. But maybe, just maybe, he could still escape. The road narrowed as he approached the lights, and his stomach twisted as he realized the truth. It wasn't a house. It was an old chapel. The stone walls were covered in moss, the small windows dark and hollow. The light came from candles flickering outside, set in a line along the crumbling stone path. The sight sent a fresh wave of fear through him. Who had lit them? Liam's foot hovered over the brake, uncertainty clawing at his chest. But before he could make a decision, the car engine sputtered. The headlights flickered once. Then everything went dark. Liam's breath caught in his throat. The silence that followed was suffocating. He tried to restart the engine, but the key wouldn't turn. The dashboard was dead. The air around him felt thick, unmoving. A soft tapping on the driver's side window. Liam's fingers dug into the wheel. His chest was too tight, his lungs refusing to fill. He didn't move. He couldn't move. The tapping came again. Low, rhythmic. Then a voice. Almost playful. You shouldn't have stopped. Liam's body locked up. He knew that voice. It was her. The girl. And she was standing just outside his window. Liam sat frozen in his seat, his breath coming in shallow, uneven gasps. The darkness around him felt thick, pressing in on all sides. The only sound was the rhythmic tapping against the glass, slow and deliberate. He didn't dare turn his head. He didn't need to. He knew she was there. The girl's voice was soft, almost teasing. You shouldn't have stopped. Liam swallowed hard, his throat tight, dry. His fingers curled around the useless key in the ignition, but he didn't try to start the car again. He knew it wouldn't work. Whatever this was, it wasn't just some ghostly trick. It wanted him to feel this fear. It wanted him to know that running was useless. The tapping stopped. Silence. Second sound. Not tapping. Scraping. Low. Drawn out. Fingernails dragging down the window. Liam's stomach twisted violently. His instincts screamed at him to move, to do something, but his body refused to cooperate. He could feel the weight of her presence just beyond the thin barrier of glass, lingering in the darkness, waiting. And then, second voice. Get out. It was different. Harsher. Will. Liam's breath hitched. His pulse roared in his ears. He didn't know which was worse, the girl or this new presence. The voice had come from the other side of the car, deep and guttural, like it was being forced through gritted teeth. The air inside the car felt even heavier, charged with something unseen, something ancient. The pressure built around him, an unbearable weight sinking into his chest, making it harder to breathe. Trick. That's what this was. He had heard the stories. Spirits that preyed on travelers, drawing them deeper into the fog, making them see things, hear things, until they lost their way completely. But Liam hadn't just lost his way. He had been led here. The candles outside the chapel flickered, the light dancing wildly in the dark. The faint glow barely reached his car, but it cast long, shifting shadows across the ground. And in those shadows something moved. A figure just beyond the edge of the light. Not the girl. Something else. Liam's grip on the wheel tightened. He was trapped. If he stayed in the car, he was at their mercy. If he got out, he didn't know what waited for him. Then suddenly, a whisper. Right in his ear. Run. Liam's body jolted with a violent shudder. He spun in his seat, eyes wide. The back seat was empty. But he had felt it. A breath on his skin. A voice so close it had brushed against his ear. His chest rose and fell in rapid bursts, panic clawing at him from all sides. He had to move. Fumbling with the door handle, he threw it open, stumbling out onto the damp gravel. His legs were weak, unsteady, but he forced himself upright. The air outside was no better. It was colder, heavier, thick with a scent of damp earth and something else, something metallic. The night was utterly silent. No wind. No rustling trees. Just stillness. The chapel door creaked open. Liam's breath caught. The heavy wooden door, barely hanging on its rusted hinges, swung inward, revealing nothing but pitch-black emptiness inside. He had no reason to go in. Every part of him screamed to turn around, to run back the way he had come, to disappear into the night and never look back. But he knew, deep down, this wasn't over. Not yet. Something had brought him here. Something wanted him inside. And worst of all, he could still hear her. The girl. Somewhere in the darkness. Crying. Liam's breath was ragged. His pulse hammering in his ears as he stood at the chapel's threshold. The darkness inside was thick, almost unnatural, swallowing the faint glow from the candles outside. The girl's muffled crying echoed from within, the sound twisting around him, pulling him forward even as every instinct screamed at him to turn back. But he couldn't. Not now. He stepped inside. The old wooden floor creaked beneath his weight. The air was damp, heavy with a scent of decay and something else, something familiar. A metallic tang clung to his throat, making him swallow hard. He barely had time to take it all in before the door behind him slammed shut with a force that sent dust spiraling into the air. Liam spun around, his breath catching. He was trapped. The crying stopped. Silence. A whisper. Right behind him. You should have run. Liam whipped around, but there was nothing. Just rows of crumbling pews. The stone walls lined with faded ancient carvings. The darkness seemed to press in closer, shifting as if something was moving within it. And then, in the faintest sliver of candlelight, he saw her. The girl. She stood at the far end of the chapel, just beyond the altar, half hidden in shadow. Her long dark hair hung limply over her face, her small frame barely visible in the dim light. Liam's throat tightened. His body felt frozen, yet his mind screamed at him to act. "Who are you?" he forced out, his voice barely more than a whisper. The girl's head tilted slightly, as if considering the question. Then slowly she lifted her hand and pointed, not at him, at the wall behind the altar. Liam's stomach twisted. He didn't want to look. He knew whatever he would find there wasn't meant to be seen. But his feet moved on their own, drawn forward by something he couldn't explain. The closer he got, the stronger the metallic scent became. And then he saw it. Name. Carved into the stone. His name. Liam Doyle. His breath hitched. His head spun, thoughts racing. How? Why? Then, before he could move, the candlelight flickered wildly. A cold gust of air rushed through the chapel, and the crying started again. Louder, sharper, filled with something raw and broken. Liam turned back toward the girl. But she was gone. And in her place, figure. Cloaked in shadow. Its face was impossible to see, but its presence was suffocating. The weight of it pressed down on Liam, making it impossible to breathe. A voice, low, rasping, filled the air. You were never meant to leave. Liam's vision blurred. His head ached. Memories, ones he didn't recognize, flashed through his mind. The road. The girl. Car. The chapel. Loop. He had been here before. He had never left. The truth slammed into him like a tidal wave. He wasn't just lost. He wasn't just haunted. He was part of it. And as the shadows closed in, as the whispering voices surrounded him, he realized this had been his fate all along. Liam's breath came in short, panicked gasps. The air around him felt thick, pressing against his skin like unseen hands trying to hold him in place. The shadows swirled, moving like they were alive, whispering in voices he almost recognized. His name repeated over and over, soft, relentless, surrounding him. He staggered back, but there was nowhere to go. The chapel walls seemed closer now, the space tightening, warping. His name was still carved into the stone, deep and permanent, as if it had always been there, as if he had always been here. But that wasn't possible, was it? His mind raced through the moments leading up to this. His car breaking down, the girl in the road, the tapping on the glass, the whispers in his ear. Had felt real. It was real. But the memories twisted now, shifting like reflections on water. Something was missing. Or maybe something had been changed. The figure in the shadows moved closer. Not walking, gliding. The candles flickered wildly, casting erratic shapes across the stone floor. Liam's pulse pounded in his skull. He wanted to run, but his body refused to move. Then the voice came again. Knowing. You never left. Liam squeezed his eyes shut. That's not true. He had come here tonight. He had driven these roads. He had tried to escape. Hadn't he? The air grew colder. He could feel something shifting inside him, memories pressing against his mind, half-formed, unfinished. The smell of rain. The sound of tires skidding on gravel. Flash of light. Then impact. Liam's breath caught. A sickening realization settled into his bones. He had been here before. Not just once. Many times. The road. The girl. The chapel. Loop. His body trembled as fragments of something buried deep within him started surfacing. He could almost hear it now. The screech of tires, the way the world had tilted, the cold bite of stone against his skin. The accident. It had happened here. On this road. Outside this chapel. Not tonight. Not recently. Long time ago. The truth slammed into him like a wave, knocking the breath from his lungs. He had never made it out. He had never driven away. His car had crashed on the same road where he had seen the girl. The same road that had led him back here, over and over again. And the girl. Liam turned sharply, his heart hammering as the shadowed figure slowly melted away, dissolving into the darkness like mist. And in its place, standing just beyond the altar, the girl. Her face was clearer now, no longer obscured by tangled hair or shifting light. Her eyes were sad but not empty. She had been waiting, watching. Liam's voice cracked when he finally spoke. Who are you? Her lips parted slightly, but she didn't answer. Instead, she reached out, her fingers brushing the air between them. Not touching, just there like an invitation. And suddenly he understood. She wasn't the one keeping him here. She was showing him the way out. Liam's chest tightened, emotion swelling inside him. He had been trapped in this loop for so long, repeating the same path, the same night, never remembering, never escaping. But now the pieces had fallen into place. He had died here. And he had never let go. His body felt lighter, the weight of the past lifting just slightly. The shadows around him no longer felt suffocating, and for the first time, the whispering voices faded into silence. The girl stepped back, nodding slightly. It was time. Liam took a shaky breath and closed his eyes. For the first time in what felt like forever, he let go. The chapel, the road, the night itself. All of it melted away into nothingness. And then there was only peace. In the quiet countryside, the wind whispered through the trees, carrying the faintest sound of laughter before fading into the night.